Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Future of Space. I'm your host, Daniel Fox. Our guest today is Alain Bernard. Alain is the founder and CEO of Abbey Road Advisory, advisor to two space companies, the Exploration Company and Orbite. He is a former president and CEO of Richemont North America and former president CEO Americas at Van Cleef and Arpels. Alain, welcome to the Future of Space.
Thank you, Daniel.
There's You and I. We've had several conversations, and I'm looking forward to go deeper into those great conversation. But before we go there, could you share with us? I always start my interviews with these two questions. Could you share with us three words that capture the essence of space for you?
All right. Well, let's start by that. First of all, I want to congratulate you for your pronunciation of Van Cleef and Arpels, which can be a challenge sometimes, but you did it perfectly well. So that's you're off to a good start, I have to say.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Three words that capture the essence of space. Wow. I would say the first one would be childhood, in a sense that with space, we are all kids, we are all children. And I guess, everybody working in space now, from far, from near, is still a little kid who has been watching the stars and the planet and reading all those books and being fascinated by all those stories, which has been my case. So I still consider myself a little boy in that extent, fascinated by the Mercury and Apollo stories and all those programs, and read Jules Verne and The Little Prince, which is one of the most read stories in the world, and happens to be a little character coming from a different planet. And I could multiply the example. I mean, space is definitely in all childhood stories and childhood dreams. So I believe there's definitely a connection between the child and the adult that we become. Second one. Okay, for the second one, I will take two, and then for the third one, I will take two. Let's do this. That's the French way, which is never respect the rules. So the second one, I would say, I'm hesitating between actually two words which basically say the same, which is holistic and total, in the sense that for me, space is all at once. It's everything. It's science and tech, but it's also poetry and magic, or it's logic and magic. It's the best human story possible, and it's highly technological. It's definitely rocket science, literally. So there's nothing more complex than that, but there's nothing more simple than that. So there's something holistic. It's everything at once. The same way we would say like total sport, or that flexes all the muscles at the same time, or total art. I would say space is like the total discipline. And then for the third one, again, I would take two words: now and positive. Now, because there's so many things happening now, and even from an outsider that I am, I'm not coming from the world of space, and I'm kind of discovering or rediscovering what's happening, and I see the whole democratization and all the changes that are happening with space, and it's happening now. And positive because, and I'm sure we'll come back on that, on what space can bring to human beings and to the planet. And at a time of discussions, whether it's a good thing, a bad thing, whether it's good to go on space and burn tons of money and fuel, or is it a good thing for the planet? So I'm a strong positive believer that it's definitely beneficial for the planet. So that's why I put the word positive. So you wanted three, you had five. Sorry about that.
It's all fine. Listen, we can make it into three words, or one word is going to work. When you say childhood, the yes, I mean, from being a child, looking up and watching movies when you're a kid and having the imagination, but I can even share with you some recent experience that really, within a fraction of a second, reconnected me with a childlike reaction, where we were just on Monday. we were on the ferry from Saint Bart to Saint Martin, and we were just about to arrive at Philipsburg, and we round the point, and we're in the bay, and the sun had set about an hour earlier, so the sky was dark, and suddenly looking northwest, just above the mountain, this glow just came out of nowhere. This like kind of almost northern light-ish curtain of light, but it was coming from one single point. And then my brain went into like automatic rationalizing, analyzing, like, what is this? And it took me just a few seconds to understand that it was the rocket SpaceX that had launched from LA. And
No way.
within the fraction of a moment, I became super, super excited, like a kid just suddenly being connected to space, like having this visceral, not only it was understanding that this is a rocket going to space, but also it was beautiful. It was so mesmerizing. It was, I mean, they call it the jellyfish shape. And then it just kind of disappeared. And I was looking around, and most of the people kind of like went on, and just a few were just like, oh my God, what is this? And some people realized, okay, it's a rocket. But for me, it was like Gattaca movie connected to a dream, and really having this realization that millions of people scattered all over the Americas at this moment were connected to this new reality of where we're going more and more. And it was just this like kind of childlike experience. So definitely when you say childhood, it's it resonates a lot.
Lucky you to have witnessed that.
Yeah, first, but it's the first one for me, and we were 3,500 miles away from the launching point. But yesterday I was talking to someone who's building a spaceport in Nova Scotia, and we have all these other spaceports that are in the process of being built. And the thought of like now more and more people from all around the world will have the capacity to experience this site, this this era, this moment in time where we used to look at planes, or if it was just if you were only in Florida, you would get to see these rockets from time to time. But now the opportunity for the regular people to at one point to look up into the night sky and see the beauty of the technology and what it represents is it's fascinating. Now, and you mentioned it into your second word also, because you said it was the totality, and you said the human story. And I want you to go beyond a little bit, beyond the science and the technology. What is the human story of going to space?
That's a good one. Obviously, a super complicated one. I'm sure you had like multiple answers on this one. Well, I'd like to think. I mean, the same way you said it. There's definitely a human connection when we all look at the stars. I mean, from our planet, we're all connected. We're all looking at more or less the same direction, and we have the same dreams and the same will of exploring and go way beyond our usual borders, if you will. So there is this connection, like this common dream and common will of going somewhere else, probably, and extend our usual territory. So that connects us. There's also a connection in time, which I see with space. Just practically speaking, those space programs are super long term. You don't build a program for the next year, the next 3 years. I mean, it's decades. We are preparing now. We've been preparing now for years. The exploration to Mars and other planets. And it's going to take decades. We know it. So there's some form also of connection between generations of a whole bunch of super smart people doing something together, which will benefit for in 20, 30, 50, 100 years for the kids and grandkids and grandkids. So that definitely connects the people. talking about human connections, especially at times of wars and between countries. Space is the only area where Russians and Americans and Chinese can be in the same area without harming each other or and being just brothers and sisters. And just the recent launch of the last SpaceX. I mean, with a Russian and American and an Emirati on the same rocket. I mean, that tells a lot. So this connection in space, connection in time, and there's probably something also with the humanity which is brought by space, which I would see is the fact that probably comes back to my second word, as you said, but the fact that it really takes out the best of human people. I'm talking of obviously this whole population of when I say super smart, women and men working on space programs, whether astronauts or not, all the scientists and from different disciplines. They're just the best in what they are doing, and they are encouraged to be the best in what they're doing because it's an art which doesn't suffer imperfection. So when you're looking for the best in yourself and in your teams and in your colleagues and in the whole team, that definitely favor the best of humanity in general.
Now, I know that for me, like the fact that the two of us were here talking about space, and you said earlier, you consider yourself as an outsider. I totally consider myself as an outsider. I never grew up I was not a space geek, and that I've always looked up to the stars as it's part of nature. But there's, this is not a place where we can think of one day. Like I love science fiction, but for me, it was not an idea of the future. It was just imagination. But the turning point for me was back in 2019. I had my book tour, had done solo wilderness expeditions for almost 15 years, and I was looking for my next chapter. And watching those two rockets, Elon Musk's SpaceX rocket landing upright, was that moment when I realized, wait a second, this is just a continuation of what humans have been doing over and over for thousands of years, which is we always get to a point where we look over the horizon, whether it's above, at the mountains or on the ocean, and we always want to go to these places. And then it's just a question of time and how to figure out the technology. But the humans have become the perfect medium for life because we're constantly expanding and moving forward. And then the thing that I wrote that kind of became a little bit viral, but from the perspective, not that I want to personalize the planet, but from an entity that has knowledge, which is life, it's in its best interest that at some point life goes further and beyond itself so that it can continue. Because otherwise, I mean, even in billions of years, yes, it will disappear, but its children, its knowledge will continue. And that's, I think, that's something that we should be proud of. I mean, is that like what's under the human story that you think of?
Well, definitely, I'm on the same page. I mean, there's again what I definitely relate myself to is this continuation. I mean, I was talking of years and decades. You can extend that to centuries and millenniums. I mean, the fact that space has always been a place for observation, dreams, poetry, story. I mean, there's something there from the very early age of humanity, which is not even scientific. And then it moved to science and like the real scientific observations of planets, and then it moved to what we are living now, which is like real exploration at a pretty grand scale, and which is a natural continuation, which is what I love. There's something which is really natural in this evolution, which we have seen in other types of exploration and transportation on the planet. We're just extending. now to something which is at the same time completely new, but which is really anchored into our own human DNA since, our grand whatever ancestors.
Absolutely. Now I'm kind of curious, was space always a your something that you were fascinated with? Because I was looking at your LinkedIn profile and I thought it was extremely
I
interesting,
know.
a diverse background, and where you started as an analyst for nuclear for Société, I think, Générale France, and then you went for Ernst Young as a consultant, and then after that you went to Cartier, and then and then you kept going into the luxury market of the economy, and now you're like an advisor for Exploration Company and Orbite, and like totally kind of separated. What is the threads and what is the arc of
You
the
need some voiceover. This little bizarre career, right? It all makes sense, It's kind of Steve Jobs type of things where you connect the dots at the end. But
yes.
actually, you could have connected the dots at the beginning. No, no. Long story short, I grew up fascinated and passionate about space, science, exploration in many ways. One of my first readings were somewhere between Jules Verne and Michael Collins. I mean, his book about Apollo 11. I probably read it like, I don't know, 10, 20 times when I was a kid, and was fascinated by this world. I wanted to be a pilot when I was a kid, which never materialized. So, but I probably had still this dream a very long time in my mind. I was pretty good at math and science, so graduated as an engineer. Even if I did, more economics and finance than like pure scientific topics, but still graduated as an engineer. So there was still, this kind of scientific thread in my the first part of my life. At that time in France, we had to do a military service, which doesn't exist anymore in the same way. And I found this. So some people were doing like really active military, like soldiers, officers. Some other were, going overseas to work in different French companies in different countries. And I found this job for 1 year, which was called scientific du contingent, scientific of the army, if you will, and which was this nuclear proliferation analyst for a public service, part of the prime minister's services, which I did for 1 year. I was not specialized at all in this area, but I had to learn like very fast on nuclear proliferation. And my work was actually to conduct some research and some to do some analysis on what was going on in a few hot countries in the world. And so that was also my little scientific experience there. And then my military service was over, and I looked for a job. Honestly, I didn't know what to do at that stage. Still interested in some science things, etc., but also some business topics. Was not too sure. And because I was not too sure, the easy path was to go on a pretty generalist job within a pretty global consulting firm. Kind of easy path. And that's what I did. So I started by that. Went a little bit by accident into the consumer good practice and some manufacturing topics as well. And then one day I looked for, I was reading the newspaper and I saw this job ad for a luxury good company called Cartier. I found it pretty cool. I had no real clue what luxury really was. And I applied for it and I met fantastic people. And I said, well, why not? Let's give a try. And I stayed 23 years within the same group, working on luxury goods from between Europe, Asia, and US since 10 years. So basically, I built my whole career in luxury goods between two brands, Cartier and the second one you pronounce super well, Van Cleef and Arpels. and I loved it. And until a point where I reach a stage of my life and my career where I wanted to keep on working in this world, the world of brands, of luxury, of retail, and I had a passion for that. But I had also a passion for what this whole world of luxury was evolving into, starting by sustainability and circularity and new forms of luxury and new form of experiences. And I wanted to explore that in another way. And I left Richemont and I started my own advisory and consulting firm. And I also had started to invest into a few luxury/brand startups. And that's the moment. I wanted to make a long story short, but it's going to be a long story long. That's the moment through my deep partner, Marie, whom you know. I met a gentleman called Gildo Pastor, a wonderful man from Monaco, living in New York, very wealthy, who's a real estate tycoon, but he's more than wealthy. He has a few passions in his life. One of them is space. Another one is electric mobility. And we met, and he started to say, to tell me, I just put together this new company called Venturi Astrolab, which is a space company based in LA. The whole purpose of this company is to design, create, manufacture, and then launch electric rovers that will go on the moon and that will serve the few missions, starting by the NASA missions when they come back on the moon. It's super cool. We are getting there. I have a bunch of super smart engineers working on the product. The prototype is almost ready. I want to make it as a beautiful product by itself. And I have this vision that there should be a connection between the world of space and probably the world of luxury that, you know, Alain. And why? Because I have the sense that, some brands will be interested by space as a concept, by space exploration in particular, by associating their name to some space topics, starting by product testing or, testing products with new materials or in extreme conditions, or doing some philanthropic action that are related to space, benefiting the earth, and so on and so on. So I started to work on this, or, just very basically having some luxury goods sent in space for marketing purpose. And so we started by this. I said, maybe Alain, you can help me in working on this and see if my vision or my intuition is correct, and that there are connections between the two worlds, which are said to be like completely apart, space and luxury. So with Marie, we started to work on this and, call a few friends in luxury brands and say, hey, we kind of working with this new firm in space. We don't know anything about space. We're really outsiders, but we think also that there could be some connection. What do you think? And to our surprise, I have to say, we got mostly some super interesting answers on, yeah, actually it's not a bad idea. And we from the luxury brands could be interested, because we from luxury brands come from a world where we want to go, we want to push the barriers, we want to push the borders. Our DNA is made of exploration and traveling from ages, take a Hermes or Louis Vuitton, and they've been into this. So probably space is the next frontier for us, and we want to explore that in some ways. So that was the start of space and luxury together. And then we happened to meet three extraordinary individuals whom you interviewed, so you know them: Hélène Huby from the Exploration Company, and Jason Andrews and Nicolas Gaume from Orbite. And we started to work with them and advise them on how to connect both worlds, which is luxury and space. And we are right in the middle of it, and it is fascinating. And I'm going to stop here because I don't want to be too long, and I'm sure you have multiple questions remaining.
No, I mean, I think it's the beauty. I think of the moment is understanding that for so long, space was something where either it was defense related, government and things like that, satellites, engineers, math people, um, and the fact that still today a lot of the characteristic needed to work for space is you have to be an engineer. But more and more, it's the understanding that to bring the human experience into space, we have to the engineering and the math has to almost take a step aside, become more part of the background, so that these brands, the people who are more passionate about what it is to be human, can now start imagining and building the foundation for what the human experience is going to be. And I was talking to some friends at Rosewood Hotel, and we were wondering. I was telling them, it's like, is Rosewood? I would love if Rosewood would be the first hotel chain to really start the dialogue of the hotel in space. Not that they have to invest into space, but at least bring the awareness, to feed that conversation. Ultimately, Hilton, came about and did it, but like I was talking to the CEO of Carnival at some point for a conference, and I joked. I said, "Is it possible, that in the future, at some point, there's going to be a Carnival cruise ship in space?" And they were like, "Oh no, this is like so. No, we're not going over there." And I'm like, "This like it's such an easy connection between the cruise ship and the spaceship. You're talking about two vessels that are self-contained that go to these places that are not necessarily land-based, and it would be so easy for a brand like a cruise ship to go and say, listen, we're not investing, but we want to participate in the dialogue. And I think that more and more, whether it's art or whether it's cuisine, not just cooking, but cuisine and the hotel, the hospitality, what is that human experience is going to be? And I mean, a lot of the work that I'm trying to do is really to bridge those two sides, the non-space and the space, so it becomes more about the future of our species within the context of outer space and for the benefit of the Earth. But it's so fascinating to hear that, yes, these brands are out there wanting to get involved. And you've been surprised by the amount of those brands, right? I mean, it's just not one; it's actually more than.
It's and it's growing because, and it's not totally new. I mean, to be honest, when you take a brand like Omega, watch, I mean, timepieces brand, they've been in space since the very early ages of the American programs, and there's not one American astronaut who has gone in space without an Omega watch on his wrist. So I don't want to advertise too much, one brand versus the other, but let's face it, it's not totally new, and they are super smart in doing it and super genuine. That's part definitely of their own identity and story. What's probably accelerating now is that brands are realizing that, or they're realizing, they know it already, but that's it's their world, their world and their identity is made of obviously creativity, extreme emotion, extreme beauty. Luxury is made of experiences. Luxury is made of being part of a special circle. And if you take all those elements, like all those very important words defining what is luxury, and you replace luxury by space, you get more or less the same. The world of beauty, the world of creativity, the world of emotion, the world of experience, the world of being a part of something special. And I could multiply probably the number of connections there. But the brands are realizing that. And so we've seen a few recent examples of brands where their creativity has been fueled by space, new products, new collections, ways of launching a product or building a fashion show, for instance, advertising campaigns made out of space inspiration, philanthropic actions, and that's so important. So brand associating themselves with some actions that can benefit space and also benefit Earth, from cleaning space debris, for instance, but also all the possible, climate change in a positive way, action, which are done thanks to space technology and benefit the Earth. And some brands are associating their names to that. Again, product testing, new material, extreme conditions. So brands are realizing that they can do really something positive for their brand, for their product, for their clients with space. And what's great is that, major houses are going into this. I mean, you take the names of Chanel, you take Dior, and those are like the biggest brands in the world. And again, you can take many other names. Moncler is an interesting one these days that we're looking at space. In the watch world, in the jewelry world, in the hospitality world, as you mentioned, Orbite is a fantastic example. Orbite is a new luxury brand, which is a hospitality brand, a space-related or space experience resort, which is going to be built, which is being built in a very special place for space in Florida, obviously, in a very nice place of Florida. And so you have a hospitality concept, 5-star, super luxurious, where the core of the experience is going to be space training. So you and I and our kids and our parents will be able to go there just to have a space experience from Earth, but also professional astronauts will go there for a longer program and being trained there. And that's a new luxury brand, if you will. So you have the existing brands, which are at least curious about what's happening, if not more. And you have new brands being created from this world of space.
The all this the experience of it, like I'm extremely fortunate. I have grateful for all the opportunities that have been presented, in my life, and even more so since Seabourn came and asked me to be their expedition photographer on their new expedition ship. And last year I spent, and this year it's going to be the same thing. But I went to Antarctica and I went up above the Arctic Circle, hang out with the polar bears, and it was not a science research vessel. It was a specifically expedition type ship, but built with a certain lifestyle. And now what it does is that you have a lot of people, granted, they can afford it, but a lot of people who would have never even thought of experiencing these places on Earth, and now do it in the comfort that is fantastic. And there's nothing bad about that. It's really I witnessed couples like in their 90s getting to experience for the first time Antarctica. Someone in a wheelchair going down and having the capacity to get into the zodiac and getting closer to penguins. And you cross the Drake Passage, and now you have the satellites that is able to see before all the conditions of the Drake Passage, the height of the waves, the system, the winds, and everything, so it can actually adapt the route and say we're going to go over there. So you end up crossing the Drake Passage in a kind of smoother way rather than kind of heading into the storm. And it's just all these opportunities, and space is going to be the same thing. Like right now, going to space, it is really bare bone. You eat dry food and it's super limited, and you have to be fit, and like and it was even worse back in the days. I'm even more limited. But more and more, the bare bone camping, dry food eating is going to move beyond, and we're going to have to figure out what in that new environment, what is food? I was reading this piece about food is going to be maybe more about texture in your mouth, because now you have to create it from new sources. So the experience of food is going to be really different. And art, all these new opportunities, zero gravity, what can it offer us for art and for like our entire understanding of the human experience is going to change. And we talk often about, like, if you're a company or if you're a brand, you want to go to where the action is. You want to be in New York because there's all the people in New York, and you want to create opportunities that might not be within your realm of vision, but just because you talk to different people. Space is that new kind of destination. And for these brands, it makes so much sense to kind of like, well, we don't know exactly how it's going to benefit us, but we need to be part of that conversation, and we're going to support it in all the different ways.
Yeah.
I think it's fabulous, right?
Yeah. I mean, again, exploration is in our nature, right? I mean, even when we are, inside at home, we want to look by the window and look what's happening in the street and in our neighbors, and we want to explore the world. So space is just, again, a natural extension. Doesn't mean that everybody would go there. Doesn't mean that everybody's interested by that. I mean, and doesn't mean that it's not controversial. Again, which is probably what's really interesting these days, is this whole debate of good or bad, and it's a normal one. And I guess at the early ages of aviation, in the 1900s, there were probably a lot of people who were saying, what's the point in building planes when you have cars or when you have horses, or we don't need to do this distance in a limited time. We have time, etc. So there was probably some discussion at that time, which we are having now in a different way. But what I love with what's happening is that, like, kind of the bad stuff, everything which is around vanity and just pure ego thing of I want to be the first one, I want to be the highest one, I want to be the whatever, and this kind of billionaires game starts to be a little bit behind us, and beyond this, we are all realizing that it's not going to be easy. It's going to be long. It is a costly endeavor, but it's highly anchored in our nature. So basically, as human beings, it's just part of us. And good news, it's not only it's part of us, but it's going to be good for us. So, and it's more and more proven. So we still meet, and that's all right. People who say, guys, I mean, you're just losing your time. There's just so many things to do on Earth. Why waste our time and energy and resources going up there? And that's okay. And I think we need both. Like, we definitely need to work on our planet in many ways, staying here. And at the same time, we need to explore, look at it, and work on it in a different way.
Yeah, one is never at the expense of the other. I mean, even recently, I wrote and posted on social media about an interview that Bill Gates at given, and he was saying, to Elon Musk, please don't go to Mars. There's stuff that needs to be accomplished here, and I'm like, this is so interesting coming from someone who actually has always done the opposite of what people had told him. Like, he dropped out of school and started to computers back in days where computers were not necessarily solving anything other than giving, geeks, nerds, something to do. And somehow computers became the doorway to an entire new world of opportunities. And now it's part of the foundation. But, and if you just mentioned the 1900s with aviation, the Army back in the 1900s actually wrote an op-ed in the New York Times saying that planes was the most ridiculous idea and investment. And there were a lot of backlash even for Tesla and Edison. They were saying, it's like, what a waste of your time trying to power the world, trying to bring something when we have people that are dying, we have diseases. And like, you guys should be, if you have so intelligence, you guys should be doctors or something else that can address the core of these issues that we have. But the world that they helped created actually took a lot of those issues indirectly. And Space. I mean, I know, and I think the legitimacy of these fears of abandonment need to be recognized. That's, I mean, there's no, it's undeniable. The when even on at the smallest example of, you know, and a family, when one of the siblings leaves the town, the village, and goes away, there is a sense of abandonment for the others, where like, why you left us, or you went, you know, this is not enough for you. You had to go for, you know, for the big cities, while our own village need some work. So there's that, and it's understandable. Now we're about to leave a planet, and there's many people who think it's we're abandoning it, but there's no abandonment. We're constantly going to these places, and where we're going actually becomes part of the solution for where, you know, for where we came from. Whether it's the children leaving the nest, or whether it's, you know, when there was the big migration to America from Europe, what happened in America came at the benefit of the entire planet. And now going to space, whatever's going to happen in space is going to be at the benefit of the entire, you know, again, for the entire planet. So it's, you know, it's these realities need to be addressed, but then we need to move beyond just the science and the technology and really make it about the human story, so that people that are not specific, that where science and technology doesn't really resonate with them, can rally on that bigger vision. And I guess that's what you're trying to do with your company, correct?
Yeah, and again, I mean, connecting different worlds makes sense. I mean, space is not like now an isolated world which is just made for the world of, you know, communication and scientists and armies and so on. It's We're realizing that it's for all of us. That's where all the brands come into the picture and see the opportunity. The beauty also is that as the science evolves, and now we have also solutions to explore space in a much better way. And I relate that to the Exploration Company and what Hélène and her team are doing, which is putting together transportation vehicles in space, which are so much better in many ways than what has been done so far. I mean, think of the green propellant that are being used. Think of the totally reusable way that it's being built. Obviously, much more affordable, so opening up more opportunities. So it's kind of, you know, the analogy would be sending an electric vehicle in space and using it for transportation without fuel. There's still fuel, but it's green. It's a green one. Makes a whole difference, because for all of those who say, okay, maybe we can find solution, maybe it's part of human nature, maybe it's part of human story. However, doing that, you're still, you know, doing bad. I mean, you're still burning things, etc. Not so true anymore. There are great solutions, and the Exploration Company is obviously a great one, and we're so proud to be associated with it. To explore and democratize space in a sustainable way.
Now, Alain, I want to be mindful of your time. We started with me asking you three words that capture the essence of space, and usually I want to wrap up with tapping into the wisdom of your experience as a human, of your career, all these different places that you've worked and the teams that you work with. Can you give us your three words of wisdom for anyone who would be either a young person listening, or even someone older who's looking to find their next chapter? What are your three words of wisdom?
Oh, wow. I don't know if it's going to be three words, so I'm gonna try to think how to summarize it.
All right.
Maybe I could choose four words. I have something. I didn't invent them. You know the fish philosophy coming from the Seattle market. I mean, Nothing new, nothing revolutionary, but I just love them. So, it's about play, be there, choose your attitude, and every day make someone's day. And you can use that in your daily life and in your work life. Play, because there's something playful in everything we're doing. And I'm a big player. And there's one motto I have, which is doing things seriously without taking myself too seriously. And that works. If you take yourself too seriously, that's the beginning of the end. But you have to do things seriously. So play, be there, which is be in the moment, not yesterday, not tomorrow. I mean, you have something to do now. We're together now, Daniel, and I'm not with someone else. Choose your attitude, and a lot of things can happen in your life, in the world, etc. And the question is the filter you put in order to process that, and the attitude you choose, which can be, I mean, facts are facts. Then your attitude can be positive, negative, etc. You choose it. I choose it. And then make your day and make my day, which is being the relation and trying to be good to each other.
Yep.
So
perspective is one of the only big powers that we have, and I think that's one of the things that we've been able, independently of the tragedies that everyone experiences or our world experiences, somehow we have the capacity to create these stories that make us grow, that make us go beyond rather than being stuck. And I mean, for some do choose that path, and it's unfortunate, but the others, then it becomes part of us, and then we find ourselves at the place where we look back and we realize we would not be here today had it not been for those moments. I mean, COVID is one of them, but the power that we have is what we do with those moments. So, and I have to say, today, well, you made my day. So thank you, Alain.
Thank you, Daniel. That's a good conclusion.
It was wonderful to have to speak together, and then I'm looking forward for our path to cross in either New York or on the road, and
or in the
we'll
Caribbean.
sure
that looks much better.
Oh, the Caribbeans. Listen, I'm going to be in the Mediterranean in October to November before I head south to Antarctica.
Uh-huh.
So maybe we can have a nice dinner and celebrate the life with a good meal and a bottle
You
of
got
wine.
me. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Alain. Have a wonderful
You
day.
too, Daniel. Ciao. Bye-bye.